One family was anxiously waiting to figure out what was wrong with their 16-year-old son. They were waiting to see if he tested positive for COVID. But when his test came back negative, they realized something else was killing their son.
As a dad, it's a nightmare. You know, I mean, it's I've said oftentimes, I think there's one thing that could break me, and it would be losing a kid or losing him. So as a dad, it's painful. And then as a doctor who's seen these things sometimes go the wrong way, you can't help but, panic that, he's not gonna come out of it.
This past March, 16-year-old Riker had a cough along with nausea and vomiting for about a week. So his parents took him to urgent care where they got an x-ray. Doctors thought he had pneumonia and he was prescribed standard medications and sent home. A few days later, he hadn't improved and was still having trouble breathing. So they took him to the emergency room.
Immediately kind of thought it was a COVID, to be honest with you. He had the clinical picture of a COVID presentation.
After being put on oxygen, having a chest x-ray, CT scan, and COVID test, he was immediately admitted into the ICU. After his first night in the ICU, his breathing became worse, and doctors said he had acute respiratory distress syndrome, also known as ARDS. The next morning, doctors told his parents Riker's x-rays were 10 times worse and he needed to be intubated immediately.
And then once they intubated him, they asked us to step out of the room so they can kind of get him kind of prepped up for being on the ventilator.
His family and doctors were waiting for the results of the COVID-19 test to figure out what the next best course of treatment would be, even sending the test out of town to get faster results. But the test came back negative. But while prepping him for the ventilator, a nurse found a clue that led to the right diagnosis.
And the nurse walked out and kind of showed us a couple pins and said, I just found these in his pants.
Riker was placed on a rotoprone bed used to treat acute respiratory distress. Plus, part of the treatment of the bed required him to be placed face down for 16 hours. But the family says it was hard to sign off on the treatment once they saw the risks, which included facial disfiguration, blindness, and skin wounds.
That was the hardest part while he was on the roto bed because we couldn't see him. You know, you see a tiny little slit where his eyes are and where the tube comes out when they're facing the ground.
After 8 days of being in a medically induced coma and a series of breathing tests, Riker finally began to recover.
Certainly vaping is not benign. People will say it's an e-cigarette and it's safer than cigarettes, so it's okay. That's not the case.
His family said they took these pictures because
we wanted him to be able to see them and to see what he went through. I mean, our word versus, pictures speak for themselves.
Riker is now home. He lost 30 pounds in the hospital, and he said he never thought that this would happen to him. He hopes he can let other people know the dangers of vaping.
Just don't do it. It's not worth all of that. There's no reason to. I made a bad choice. Follow my example. Don't do it. You don't want to go through that. You don't want to see your parents cry. You don't want to see any of that. It's just, there's no point.
Their family is happy that their son Riker is okay, but they do have a message for parents. Be hyper vigilant and educate yourself. Reporting in Bakersfield, I'm Alex Bell for 23 ABC News, connecting you.